Thank you so much for coming to this presentation. First of all, can I start by asking a question? How many of the audience have heard of Shazam or used Shazam? Can I just see a show of hands? Wow. Thank you very much. Well, let me just start. For those of you who don't use Shazam, let's just talk a little bit about our mission. So many of you may know Shazam as a music app. If you're in North America, you may have seen the work that we've been doing around television. If you're in Europe, you may have seen the work that we've done with some advertisers on TV. But our mission is to become an increasingly important part of people's everyday life by enabling them to recognize and engage with the world around them. And what that really means in practice is using mobile phones and wireless devices to make it easier for you to engage with either content specifically on television, or a brand, a television advert itself. And the basic premise for our strategy is that there are 3 times the number of mobile devices in the world as there are fixed line devices. So we all know about the personalization, but let's just put it in the context of the living room. When I had the great honor to keynote 2 years ago, I was putting forward the argument that a personalized device is a far better interactive experience to connect to television than maybe the remote control or a smart TV. And the reason for that is because if you can imagine that 3 of us are watching a show, then one of us could potentially vote for that show if we're watching a reality TV show. One of us could perhaps buy something from within the show. And funny enough, one of us could actually just watch the show on the TV. And so the benefit of personalized devices is that we don't interrupt the viewing experience for other people who are in the living room at the same time. But it's also interesting that the world has moved on in the past 24 months. And here's a very interesting anecdote from Strategy Eye. 2/3 of UK smartphone shoppers actually say that they now purchase products in the home using their wireless devices. So this isn't just about being outside, this is about being in the living room. And the opportunity here is that we've moved from the capability, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Yahoo Nielsen stats, of 86% of North American households have a second screen or a second device with them whilst they're watching television. We've moved from having that capability on the couch to the intent to actually the behavioral change. And now people are actually purchasing using their devices. So this morning, what I'd like to do is just share a few insights and a few of the learnings that we've had. And I'm going to highlight 5 key topics around connected TV in the context that of the work we've done with our partners, both the broadcasters and advertisers. So let's start with scale, and scale matters. So Shazam has close to 450 million users, and each day we have about 17 million interactions. We actually support 160 channels of television in North America 24/7. We also support about 85% of all the ads on TV in North America. And we're growing very quickly. Each month, we add 13 million new users to the service. And if you bear in mind that last year in 2013, we spent less than $1 million on marketing, we added over 100 million new users to Shazam. And part of that is being driven by moving beyond music into television and encouraging people to use the service in different ways. And that translates, when you've got that degree of scale, that translates into really meaningful results for the broadcasters when we're trying to build this experience around connected TV. So just a few weeks ago, we had 1.1 million people Shazam the Grammys ceremony. And that's really important because for those of you who are content owners or brands, you may well have already explored the whole app world and developed your own apps and realized that it's quite challenging now in the app stores to actually drive downloads of your service. And so Shazam very much sees itself as a platform whereby we can work with the broadcasters, the production companies, and the brands to enable them to engage their audience and for us to bring scale. And scale really counts. So what about how to do it? Well, where does the second screen fit in? You may have seen that there's been fairly significant consolidation around lots of the startup companies that entered the second screen space 24 months ago, and 2013 and 2014 will continue to be a year of consolidation. But the question is second screen succeeding or failing? And in our minds, it very much is succeeding, and importantly, every show is a brand, and so it's important to understand why would you succeed and how do you succeed in the context of second screen. We believe that everybody needs a second screen strategy, but that's not necessarily meaning that you have to deliver an in-show experience whilst people are watching TV. What we've learned is that if you're watching a drama series like Homeland or Downton Abbey, people just want to watch the show. They don't want to be distracted and have to look down at another device. They're watching the storyline, they're engrossed in the content, they really just want to enjoy the whole experience. But that doesn't mean that those shows shouldn't have a second screen strategy, because at the end of the season, that brand needs to live on in people's minds. So here's an example of a piece of work that we did not do. This is from BPG, and this is with Homeland in the States. And I'll give you this example, and I'd like to talk about this example because I think it was tremendously well executed. Here we had, between seasons, a continuation of engagement for the viewers. And here was a play-along game that continued with the plot of Homeland and then actually led into the new season coming up with a first insight into some of the footage. Tremendously successful, was Emmy Award nominated, and I think was a great execution and a great example of how you can use the second screen to continue to engage your audience between seasons. This doesn't all have to be in the show itself. But if you are going to do it in the show, then we know that the market is segmenting. So we know that certain shows, reality TV is one good example, sports is another, certain show genres perform a lot better for second screen than others. Here's a very, very obvious example, voting. We did the voting for X Factor, and instead of having to remember the long-form telephone number or write down the short-form SMS number, all you simply had to do was press the Shazam button, and then you could vote for the contestant of your choice straight away. So this is reducing the friction, making it easier for the audience to engage with the show itself. But if we go a step further than that, then we know that feedback loops, what we call feedback loops, really drive much greater interaction and command greater attention from the viewing audience. So here in the case of American Idol, what we were actually doing is giving real-time feedback to somebody that was voting for the contestants on the show, so they could see who was trending and who wasn't. And so they felt some degree of ownership in that show because they were taking the time and trouble to vote and participate in the show itself. And that actually was a great predictor for the ultimate outcome on the shows themselves. Getting creative. So for those of you who've got Shazam with you today, you can actually Shazam this advert that's coming up. So get your phones out if you want to try this out. But I'm going to run a piece of video which is for a Jaguar F-Type ad, and I'm just going to explain to you how the brands themselves are stimulating people to engage with their TV advertising. So if we can just run the video, please.
Your turn.
The new Jaguar F-Type. Your turn.
Okay, so those of you who didn't Shazam that, if you were to use your mobile device in the context of that ad and you Shazammed it whilst it was playing, you can actually use the gyroscope on the phone to actually have an interior view and an exterior view of the vehicle. So what we're doing here with the brands is that we're actually taking a 30-second advert on TV and we're turning it into 3 minutes of engagement. So for the first time now, we're extending the engagement beyond the airtime that's being bought for the advertiser, and we're turning it into a direct response mechanism by which people can interact with that brand itself. And so what you can't see here in the top left-hand corner is that you can book a test drive. So we've got an extended brochure with some rich media engagement, a view of the car itself. But we've also got the ability then to commit and take a test drive with the brand itself. And this is tremendously powerful. 65% of people that Shazam TV adverts go on to spend time with the brand. So we know that people are interested in the brand itself, providing that there's a creative and compelling experience for them to do so. And then data. So we all know the power of data, but I just thought I'd show you some insights as to what we've been doing with both the broadcast community and with the brands themselves. So first and foremost, we have over half of our users give us their location. We don't pass any personal data to any third party, but what we do is we build views and insight around the data via web dashboards. So for the broadcasters, what they can do is they can see real-time participation rates around their television shows. This is an example of American Idol, and here you can see that on this map, you can see who's participating in the show at any point in time, and that broadcaster can actually go down to zip code level and see which specific parts of North America is where my audience is building. Why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant for a couple of reasons. First of all, if it's a TV show like X Factor or American Idol, the act that wins the show may well go on tour, and they may well have the X Factor tour or the Idol tour. And that means I know where my fan base is around the TV show, and it knows where I need to plan the tour in North America to follow the winner of the show. But secondarily, it also means that if I'm an advertiser, I can run different creative treatments across a 3-hour time window. So I can advertise around the same show, but I can run one creative treatment on the East Coast, I can run a different creative treatment in Central America, and a different creative around the West Coast, all around the TV show. And I can find out my response rates, what's responding best, and in real time I can adjust what I'm doing. We also use the data to work with our broadcast partners to try and drive check-in to the shows. The holy grail for second screen from a broadcaster's perspective is clearly if you can move the audience and encourage people to watch the shows, particularly in real time. And so as we start to build up a profile that you have been Shazamming cooking shows, whether you've been Shazamming for the music in the show or whether you've actually been Shazamming for a second screen experience around the cooking show, we know that you have an interest in cooking shows, and we may even know that you've been Shazamming the previous season of Hell's Kitchen. So what we can do is we can actually then start to message to you when the new season is coming to say that there's a new season of Hell's Kitchen, and if you're a fan, we can even send a notification on the day to say, check into the show this evening at 7 o'clock Eastern. And for the broadcaster, that means we're helping to drive the audience for that show, which means the marriage really gets consummated and we really start to deliver value to one another. And then for the advertisers, here's an example of the type of data that we provide to our advertisers. This is a God of War, so it's a Sony PlayStation campaign. As you'll see, there's a buy button on the results screen when somebody Shazams the advert on TV. So that's great. 250,000 people Shazam this advert in the first week, and Sony was able to sell the game straight off their TV advertising. But what they really loved was the data. So what we're able to do is we're actually able to tell Sony which television channels were performing best for them in terms of where they bought their advertising inventory. So they advertised on 80 television channels. And on this graph on the left-hand side, you can see the top 10 channels that perform best for them and the worst 10 performing channels. And so Quantum Leap, 1.25% of the viewing audience of Quantum Leap Shazammed the God of War advert whilst they were watching that show. And if you look at the day part, you can see that 7 to 8 o'clock in the evening performs best. So what we're starting to do here for television advertisers is inform them as to which part of their marketing is working for them and which part of the marketing isn't working for them. And pretty much in real time, if they've structured their agreements with the television companies, they can adjust their campaign and upweight the inventory on the channels that are performing best and are most relevant, and downweight for those channels that aren't performing. Ultimately, this is a benefit to the whole industry because it's improving the return on investment for the television advertiser, and what we're aiming to show is that their advertising can work more effectively for them on TV. And then finally, make it easy and make it even easier if you really want to stimulate people to have these second screen experiences around television. So this is a new piece of functionality. Some of you may have experienced it. But one of the questions we get is, well, this is all well and good, but when you talk about Shazamming a TV ad, I've got to lean forward off the couch or the settee, I've got to press my phone, I've got to open the Shazam app, and I've got to press the button before the advert finishes, and the advert may only be 15 seconds long. This clearly is not going to work. But Auto Shazam is a feature where you can just open Shazam, put it on the coffee table, watch television for 3 hours, and we will detect every show, every advert, and every piece of music that's playing around you. You can even minimize this and go onto a social network or do your work email, and we'll still capture what's playing around you. That's really powerful, because when I'm watching Downton Abbey or I'm watching Homeland, I don't want to interrupt my viewing experience. And yet I've seen this Jaguar ad, and I'm a fan of Jaguar, and I want to check it out when the show's finished. So what I can do at the top here on this carousel view is I can just scroll through the carousel, and I can get to the piece of content that I want after the show's finished. And then I can have that interactive experience with Jaguar, spend the time with the brand, and book my test drive. So to conclude, I think that the second screen is absolutely succeeding, but there are some key lessons learned. One size doesn't fit all. You have to really invest in building distribution so that we add value to the content owners and the advertisers, that they get meaningful interaction levels for working with their chosen partner. That we also need to make sure that the experience is well thought through, that it is actually relevant as to how you want to watch TV, and that you're rewarded. It's very creative, and you feel that you would do this again because the experience you had on the second screen actually was really stimulating and engaging. And I'll just leave you with one thought in terms of hopefully what we'll be talking about in 2 years' time from today, and whether it's myself or somebody else giving a keynote to this conference, which is, where does the second screen move? And our belief is that this extension of television interaction will continue into other environments. And so for us, what that actually means is for the brands connecting into the real-world environment and into the bricks and mortar stores. So let me leave you with one use case, which I think will take at least 2 years for you to see to come to market. And as you shudder in your seats, hopefully you'll understand the reason why this is going to take some time. Today, we know that you've Shazammed a Coca-Cola advert on TV. We also have the technology and the ability to know that you have gone into a supermarket like a Tesco's or a Carrefour or a Walmart. We also know where you are in that store, and we know that you've walked down the drinks aisle past the Coca-Cola, and there's a promotion on for 2 for 1 for the pack of Coca-Cola. We have the power today to send that message to your device to say, there's a 2 for 1 pack offer, and you've just walked straight past it in the supermarket store. And that all began because you interacted with television. The reason why this is going to take 2 years is because of data privacy and people's receptiveness to these types of offers. You won't see Shazam doing this anytime soon until we're absolutely certain that what we think is a great idea actually is a great idea and is a logical extension from people's TV viewing experience. But the capability exists today. I think it's a tremendous landscape and opportunity that we're in right now, and I'd like to thank you for your attention this morning. Thank you.